All right, TP fans. So once again, we have a very special guest with us here today. We have Miss Channy Crossfire. Hello, Channy.
Afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you are in the world.
Good afternoon. So first off,
Mhm.
thank you for coming here on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. I know we've been talking about getting you on the podcast for quite some time, and
Yeah, since last year.
yeah, since last year. But we all get busy with our
Oh
lives
yeah, yeah.
here. So again, thank you for taking the time out of your day to come here on the podcast. So
Oh yeah.
can you tell us a little bit about yourself to start things off?
All right. I am first generation American. My parents are immigrants. I am the eldest, the firstborn female sibling. So I'm the first in my family to do many things, which means I'm also the first black sheep and the first rebel and the first trailblazer. So yeah, I have that. And let's see, passions. I love doing yoga, martial arts, gym training, and volunteering in my communities. So that's what I usually do when I'm not working or traveling. So I'm either at the gym or finding ways to pay forward in different communities.
Thank you for sharing. Sounds like you're a very busy person when you're not working.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah. I used to struggle with depression, anxiety, so I didn't have a lot of ambitions before. But now I just feel so passionate and very productive and ambitious. Yeah, just very passionate and yeah, a lot more hopeful now. So
there you
which
go.
is
I
good.
know it helps when you find something that you're passionate about. It really helps with things such as depression and
Oh
something
hell
to
yeah.
look forward to every day.
Hell yeah. It's more sustainable, doing more of what you're genuinely happy about, what actually speaks to your soul.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you shared that you're a first generation American. Um,
Yes.
so we at here at Trike Patrol, we're all about Filipinas. We also have other sites that are all
Appreciate
about Asians.
Southeast Asians, yeah.
So you're not Filipina, are you?
No, I'm still Southeast Asian. I'm Cambodian, Vietnamese, and Chinese. Yeah.
Yeah,
But my last couple of vanilla exes have Filipino roots, so I do miss the food.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they're very I love that they're very musically inclined culture.
Yes, I
They
agree.
definitely got me into Journey a lot more.
Well, the lead singer is Filipino, right?
Yeah.
And so and
Well, I mean the new one.
yeah, the
The
new one,
new
of
one
course. Yeah,
that that the torch was passed on to. Yeah.
yeah. He
Hell
was
yeah.
discovered, I think, on YouTube. I mean,
Oh
Filipinos love to
man.
sing, as you know.
Representation, yeah, hell yeah. That's a big win for the community for sure.
Yeah. So, do you ever get mistaken for being Filipina
Oh, hell yeah,
all
being
the time,
brown,
right?
Asian. Yeah, I'm racially ambiguous,
Yeah,
so I could pass as different types of races. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm curious. The big question that we always have for folks, for performers, is how did you get into the adult biz?
All right, real talk, origin story
There
time.
we go.
All right, so honestly, it started with a breakup slash separation with my last vanilla exclusive monogamous partner.
uh,
And so that kind of had a domino effect. So that mixed in with I've had like I said, I used to struggle with anxiety and depression.
uh,
So back in my early teens and early young adult years, I've had, I like to say, my two best failures in life are my last two suicide attempts. So that was in like back in high school and in my early 20s. So mixed with that, I decided, fuck it, I'm gonna pursue my bucket list slash bucket list,
uh,
especially while I'm still single. Um, and I shit you not, my list has gotten shorter. I'm definitely sexually fulfilled and satisfied. And that's another thing I want to educate people about is like a lot of the negativity and stigmas come from uh not having enough conversations, acceptance, and training with safety protocols and
uh,
mentoring, to facilitate a safe space to indulge and explore certain cravings and urges that we all have.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to channel that type of energy and that curiosity, then it tends to turn into something negative and oppressive, and that leads to like non-consensual behaviors, you know. And I think we just need to have more, you know, healthy conversations about that, so we could create more healthy individuals that have healthy relationships with people, healthy dynamics with people, you know, knowing what our boundaries are, you know, learning more about ourselves that way. Yeah, thank you for the little talk.
Well, first off, I do want to say I am very happy that you're here with us today. I'm happy that you're able to get through some harsh times, and you know, just that you're here today. I'm very happy. You know, great story, and you know, I know a little bit about depression. I know about struggling with alcohol. I think it affects a lot of us all over the world. So and I feel like if you're able to talk to the right people in life, it will really help get through those tough times.
That's true, because not everyone is emotionally available. And I remember I used to be like that. You know, in that Frozen cartoon, Conceal, Don't Feel, I used to be that type of person the longest. You know, it took a lot of personal work and meditation and a lot of personal growth to feel comfortable being vulnerable, to feeling comfortable with sharing your story narratives, because then you'll find more people you could relate to and have similar experiences. And that's how we could actually heal and grow together as a community.
I agree. I
appreciate you opening up about that too, you know. So thank you for opening up about that and sharing that about yourself. And just I hope you're able to find good things to help you keep you grounded, you know, make it sustainable, to keep you sane on a daily basis. That's why, like, yoga and gym training, listening to music is my lifeline. And that, you know, whenever I feel intense emotions, when I feel emotionally fucked up about something, or burnt out, or sad, you know, because it's okay to be human. It's just learning how to channel those human emotions in a more productive, healthy way, you know.
I agree. Yeah, I'm sure yoga helps a lot, right? I mean, just going to the gym, I'm sure will help with depression or, you know, anxiety.
Right. It's,
you know,
I mean, because it may not look like it based on what I do for, you know, for my main like living, but I'm actually naturally an introvert. So it takes a lot of getting out of your comfort zone, the willingness, the bravery, the courage, try new things, and to be nice to yourself when you don't get things right. You know, things don't have to be perfect. It is, you know, let's keep it real. You know, sometimes you're in your head, sometimes you're self-conscious about what's happening around you, but it really is just trying to cultivate and find that inner peace and listen to the more positive, good voice in your head. You know, because like I remember I used to feel insecure doing yoga, putting myself out there, like, oh, am I doing this wrong? People will look at me funny, you know. But when I'm just focusing on myself and the exercise, you know, the main training is to learn to get out of your head, be one with nature, you know, Mother Earth. And it's really the breath work, being one with your breath. Like, those breathing techniques are crucial for sure, especially if you used to struggle with anxiety.
Yeah.
Well,
a good friend always told me, you know, kind of in a laughing matter, he'd always say, "Do you, baby girl? You know, do yourself, forget everything else, and just concentrate on yourself. You know, just forget about what everybody else has to say. Do what makes you happy. You know."
Exactly.
You know,
Real
if that
talk.
means getting out of your comfort zone, then you got to do what you got to do, right?
Exactly. But I'm sure for some people, until it becomes more natural, you know, have to do it in doses, have to do it, you know, a little bit at a time, you know, especially ever since, you know, with initial quarantine and initial pandemic, I think a lot of people had to figure out, coming out of it, like, okay, how do I be social now? How do I act around people now? You know, like let's not deny that never happened, that we never went through that, you know, as you know, with our country, as a society, globally,
Yeah,
you know, because it's still affecting family dynamics,
it is.
certain social dynamics, you know, relationships. So, but I do honestly believe, like I have no regrets. I see losses as lessons. So I honestly believe that if we're able to learn to love ourselves, be extra, you know, practice self-care, self-love, um, then we're able to love other people a lot better. You know, if we're able to feel good around ourselves more, then we'll be able to um, be more civil around others, you know, more diplomatic, more understanding. You know, if we could be understanding with ourselves, you know, or in other words, if we could be real with ourselves first, then we could be real with other people.
I agree. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like we got to learn how to love ourselves before we love others. We can't spread love
Exactly.
if we don't love ourselves, right?
Exactly. And it's better to learn that better late than never. You know, I
It
had
is.
to learn it the hard way. I didn't practice self care or self love until my last breakup. You know,
Mhm.
I didn't have my first pedicure or manicure or get my nails done until I had to go through all that. And then I was like, wow, this isn't just a first world privilege. It's
Yeah.
about pampering yourself and taking the time to appreciate yourself, you know, your body, you know,
Yeah.
certain things that you're mobile and capable of that other people don't have the privilege of, you
Yeah.
know?
I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, you got to treat yourself. Don't cheat yourself.
There you go, that part. And even if you do cheat yourself, forgive yourself, pick
Forgive.
up where
Yeah.
you left off and keep moving, keep going, keep flowing. You know,
Well
don't
said.
stay
Well
down.
said. Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. Thank you for sharing that. So
Yeah.
back to the to our line of work in adult.
Mhm. Mhm.
What misconceptions do you think that people have about the adult industry or about what
Uh,
you do in the adult
okay.
business?
Yeah, good question. And I don't speak for everyone. You know, I'm only just speaking based on, you know, myself and my own personal
Yeah.
experiences, the pros and cons of this industry and the trade-off that comes with it and the sacrifices. Um, okay, so I relatively came to the industry kind of late in the game, you
Mhm.
know, in my late 20s. And you know, most people go into it in their early 20s.
Yeah.
And but I'm so humble and grateful to go into it at the age that I did, because then I already um cultivated enough life experience and already had experience on taking care of my mental health.
Yeah.
You know, I already knew what I liked and didn't like. I already knew what my boundaries are, my do's and don'ts. You know, a lot of females, we don't have a lot of mentorship in this industry, and it is still mostly um, a male dominant industry in regards to behind the scenes
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
crew. But ironically, what I'm also trying to educate people that this is one of the main, if not only, industry where the females actually get paid more than their male counterparts.
You're
So
right. Yeah.
that's the irony in that. That's the irony, and that says a lot about, you know, our certain, you know, the wage gap. And you know, I'm not going too deep into that, but a slight dive, you know, that, you know, planting that seed there, you know, if um especially, you know, like we, especially in this country, you know, not the living wage, the cost of living, and then even with healthcare, like could you blame someone trying to get, you know, those amount of racks in a short amount of time, you know, to fund that, to, you know, to keep a roof over your head, you know? Like I
Yeah.
remember I used to, like, before I got into the industry, I used to look down on strippers.
Uh-huh.
But then again, I'm bi, like I'm attracted to all genders. So I used to have that conflict, that inner conflict of, oh man, I'm attracted to them, but I'm also kind of like shaming them at the same time, looking down on them on what they're doing. But then, you know, as I got to know more of them and started having more friends and even started exploring pole dance as an art
Uh-huh.
form, I realized, you know, a lot of these women are single mothers and they're really trying to support their families
Yeah.
and, you know, their children. You know, if that's the quickest way they can get money off the table. you know,
Yeah.
to pay for food. Like I have a lot more respect for that hustle. And I see everything that's connected. So there's a reason why like certain institutions, certain foundations, certain constructs create these different levels of means to an end of these types of different income and different ways people have certain opportunities,
I agree.
and
Yeah.
I don't blame them for taking advantage of that, especially if they have limited options. But yeah, I digress. My main emphasis on that is um it's the mental health aspects. A lot of younger females don't have the right mentorship where people could keep it real with them, like, hey, um like that's another reason why I don't recruit, because I get overprotective,
Yeah.
you know. But the advice I would say, safety protocols, whether or not you have an agent, um always find people you trust personally that you could send, your addresses to, your hotels to, the numbers, the location, and flight info, just for
Yeah.
safety, accountability, and tracing.
I agree. Yeah.
Accept open containers for drinks. Like I treat it as, like I'm the big sister or the mommy. I'm looking out for you. I can't be there for you all the time. But when you're out there in the world, having your adventures, having your experiences, still be mindful of the reality, the actual reality it is as a female, especially when you're traveling alone and if you're a minority, you know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because there are predators out there, and um, the stigma of it is a lot of. So when you watch certain videos, like I do, uh, I have a reputation for doing some hardcore videos.
Uh-huh.
I'm genuinely kinky. I have certain fetishes, but the
Yeah.
thing is, a lot of it at face value looks very extreme. But with context, the difference is that going back to the conversation we had earlier, the only difference is that it's a consensual, regulated setting. Things are already discussed beforehand,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
almost semi-scripted, and you go forward with it. Um, Compared to like a real life scenario where consent or boundaries aren't discussed, and then that leads to assault, molestation, and rape. So that's the main stigma I have for this industry. Like a lot of platforms now have more protocols in regards to paperwork and IDs and
Oh yeah.
verification.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
so that's a double-edged sword. There are pros and cons, but I accept that trade-off because, yeah, it's more paperwork, it's more of a hassle going back and forth, you know. It's tedious, it's frustrating, but if it means more accountability, more tracing, more consent, that these chicks aren't being taken advantage of, out of their
Exactly.
own
Yeah.
like free will, then that's the trade-off I accept, because I always try to be mindful of the bigger picture, and everything. So yeah, that's the main stigma, is trying to teach people um that assuming most videos and content are based out of consent and a safe mutual setting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I think what a lot of people don't understand is that you're right. Before every shoot, things are discussed.
Mm-hmm.
IDs, paperwork. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it, things don't just land online. It's not something that you shoot today or and 30 minutes later you're uploading. It happened back in the days, right? But now things have cleaned up a lot since, a couple, 3, 4 years ago. I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. But again, yeah, people think that, girls are being taken advantage of. I'm sure it happens outside of the mainstream adult business, right?
Oh yeah,
Uh,
especially with the newcomers, the new chicks that are a few months into it or their first year.
uh,
Like I've had to learn a lot of this maybe 1 or 2 years into it, but there was stuff that I wish I had known the first few months or the first year. Um like yeah, people who keep tabs on this industry and certain people, uh again, not trying to go into a deep dive into it, But yeah, yeah, when you're new, you will be most likely taken advantage of in regards to your rates and certain performances that are expected. But I
Uh-huh.
tell people, you know, you're not obligated to do anything you generally don't want to do.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know, you should have more it should feel like a team, you know, not someone just making you do something. Uh I mean, okay, there are pros and cons too with these new platforms.
Yeah.
Like back then it was more word of mouth, you know, through connections, with DVD distribution and who you know.
Uh-huh.
But again, for coming from an introvert, it's good to have these online platforms because then I don't need to go out a lot. I don't need to travel a lot.
You
You
don't have to
know,
rely on bookings, right?
yeah. I mean, well, there are pros and cons to having both an agency and self booking.
Uh-huh.
So you could have it. It is more flexible that way. You could choose who you want to work with, but also what your agency can work on your behalf. You know, with their own connections.
Yeah.
Um, but of course, you know, there are politics too in this
There
industry,
is.
and again, not going into deep dive into it, but you really just have to be your own advocate and yeah, just find out what you like to do, what you don't like to do, and you know, reach out to who you actually want to work with content wise. Don't rely completely on an agency. You really gotta look out for yourself too, but still still try to keep some good connections with people. You know, not everyone has good work ethic. And again, it does kind of help filter out and narrow down the types of people who are only like who are half-assing some things and just fucking to people who
Uh-huh.
actually do take it seriously and is trying to build some kind of brand or have some kind of um, really trying to build passive income or some type of generational wealth, you know,
Yeah.
or some type of savings, you know, who actually see things strategically and um, try and play those cards right, you know, and then but yeah, that's you know pros and cons of working professionally and working with with collabs. You
Yeah.
know, it just really depends on you as an individual and personality. Like I rarely do collabs only because I like to keep my energy based on the paid gigs, and I'd rather
Hmm.
just be at the gym. That's for my mental health,
Yeah.
you know. Especially since, like, you already know for sure the paid gigs, people are for sure tested within a certain amount of time frame, 2 weeks, right, give or
Yeah.
take. But collabs are more it's more risky, but you do get to choose who you work with. So, you know, pros and cons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do want to say, I want to mention that this industry, you gotta be, it's a real job. Like you gotta market things properly. The folks like myself that work behind the camera,
Mhm.
with the pay sites, it's
Mhm.
real work, and you gotta be serious about it. You gotta be mature about it. So
Mhm.
yeah, if you're gonna just take things and be immature about everything, it's not gonna work, right?
Yeah, especially yeah, you know, to make it sustainable, you know, and yeah,
It's okay
it
to
is
have fun,
it's
right?
that yeah, I mean, the fun part of it, that aspect and being genuinely passionate about it makes it more sustainable
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
gives you more grace in regards to trial and error, you know, and brings that creativity,
Uh-huh.
you know, to the process. But definitely there is that trial and error when it comes to being an entrepreneur and freelance, you know, and being self-employed, you know, those
Uh-huh.
1099s, you know.
Yeah, yeah, at the end of the
um,
year, yeah.
yeah, so but it really is uh it's a blessing in disguise, you know. It really depends on your attitude and your mentality about it,
You're
you
right.
know. Like some people like I used to be in the food industry for 5, 6 years. And I don't miss the rude customers. I got tired of working a 9 to 5,
Uh-huh.
in a conventional job. And ever since quarantine pandemic, I think that opened up a lot of people's minds about, we live in a country where certain institutions, foundations, and structures don't benefit us in the long run,
Yeah.
especially if you have families to take care of,
Yeah.
But even then, as an individual, when it comes to savings and healthcare and again the cost of living, that's why I advocate living wages. Most people can't survive on minimum wage. A
Especially in
lot of
California.
Oh yeah, that's why I don't blame people for moving out of Cali, especially in this industry. People are going to Vegas and Florida, and I don't blame them.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I digress a bit. That yeah. So again, quarantine and pandemic, I think helped open up more people's minds about how like how could we really be picky and shame others on how they make a living if it keeps a roof over their head? Like I remember back then, some people used to look down on Lyft drivers and Uber drivers, but after quarantine and pandemic, that was one of the main things people could only do.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's a lot more respect and I hope people became more humble. You know, when it comes to downsizing or just kind of living minimal or appreciating more of what you have, or what you might have taken for granted. And yeah, like those online platforms create a certain amount of like passive income that certain companies and corporations aren't able to provide you for. But the trade-off to certain corporations and companies that they're trying to entice you in is, the salary, the benefits, the vacay, long term.
Benefits, the 401k.
But
Yeah.
but it's still conditional. It's only on their, with their terms. The again quarantine pandemic proved that you're still um what's that word that uh it's going over my head right now that you're still um it starts with an E. There was a movie with it. You're still
Exempt.
expendable. You're still expendable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So um I think it's just creating a lot more people trying to build a passion, make money off more of their passions, more off their hobbies nowadays, which I encourage people to do. Or, people, especially in Cali, have side hustles, have more than one way to make extra money to accommodate certain things, or allocate certain money.
Yeah. You
But
can't
yeah,
live off of one salary in California. It's almost, you just can't do it, unless you're making. I mean, I think in California, to be honest, right now I'm currently in the Bay Area, which is
okay.
pretty expensive, right? Um,
Mm,
but you got to make at least 150,000 a year to be comfortable or somewhat comfortable. You're probably not going
right?
to own a house at 150,000 a year with the salary of that, but you'll get by with you'll be in a nice community. You'll be able to
Mm,
rent. But again,
mm,
150,000, that's a lot of money to make a year, right?
gosh, yeah.
No, SoCal isn't much easier. California in general is just a very expensive place.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a double-edged sword living in Cali. If you want to experience the weather, the diverse communities and culture, we're spoiled with weed and food over here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I tell everyone that, we do on our YouTube channel, we have a channel or a playlist called Pinay Eats, which I brought, like, I'm sure you know who Jada Cruz is. She
Oh
was
hell
also,
yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I brought her to a couple restaurants and we filmed it and we put
Oh,
it on YouTube. Crystal Davis, Lucky Star,
mhm.
we went to some
Oh my
Filipino
god.
restaurants.
Mhm.
So but yeah, you're right. I mean, we have all the food out here, Filipino food,
Yeah.
Mexican food, Thai food,
Hell
everything.
yeah.
So we're a little
I
spoiled out
have I have gym friends over in Hawaii, and
here.
they get so surprised about the real authentic cheese that they could get over here.
Uh,
Yeah. They said the cheese hits different over here than over in the islands in Hawaii.
I'm sure we have more options out here,
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah, for sure. I think this place at this rate is only good um, for tourism and vacay, but not to live in the long run. you know.
No, not at all. If I could, I would leave California. Like a lot of other, like a lot of other folks have done. Vegas would be a good option.
Mm.
Florida. But a lot of Californians are going to Florida, so they're getting pretty full by now.
Oh
So let's talk
man.
about some positive experiences that you have had in during your career.
Okay. Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, I crossed more stuff off my bucket list and bucket list.
Uh, it's always nice to have
uh,
a bucket list, keep you going,
huh?
keep you. It's always nice to have a bucket list, where
Yeah,
you have goals
yeah,
that you
and
want to achieve, things you want to do.
oh yeah, and I want to encourage people, don't wait until you're old. That's assuming that you will even live that long,
Yeah,
especially with life. Life isn't short. To me, life is unpredictable. And if these past few years have not um have not rocked your world with that new paradigm shift,
yeah,
then you're relatively sheltered.
yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, get started on your bucket list as soon as possible. You
Well,
know?
hey, I hate to sound like a Debbie Downer, but tomorrow is never promised. So do everything you want to do. Just do it, right? Live your life
Yeah,
how you want to live it.
yeah, exactly. You don't need to go like completely wild and crazy,
Yeah, yeah.
but just be more mindful about it, live more in the moment, like do things with do things more coming from places of love,
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 passion. Yeah.
authenticity, yeah, and passion, you know. Um
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah. Now,
yeah.
I have an interesting question for you. I know we talked a little bit about this during this interview, but let's say you have a couple friends, um, 20, 21 years old, and they want to enter the adult industry. What would you tell them?
Oh boy. Okay, yeah. Goodness gracious. Okay, so how I would mentor that, let's see. Again, like I said, I would establish um right away safety protocols.
Yeah,
It goes for both males and females because I know different males and females who've had their drinks spiked.
yeah,
It happens to males too. Um, yeah, just be careful. Uh, and again, this is me taking my own advice.
uh-huh,
Don't drink and don't be under the influence of drugs um, on set, even if it's just for a collab, even if you're not getting paid and just a collab, because you you should want to be in a safe place where there is more accountability,
yeah,
instead of
yeah,
waking up the next day, oh, I don't like this video because of how it turned out and how I look or how we acted, you know. Cover your ass. Like, just, own up to yourself more, you're not in like some sorority frat getting drunk making a sex tape, and then next thing you know you have these allegations.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like we could totally do better. um like we like you could still be sexually active, um but you could still be responsible about it.
I agree. Yeah,
Still be disciplined. Like um I've never, like, I so rarely have sex with anyone outside the industry now
uh-huh,
because I want to make sure people are tested.
yeah,
You know, like I used to get tested only once every 3 months, and before I got into the industry, um, I used to go to swinger parties. I used to go to sex parties, and that was
uh-huh,
based on my bucket list because I
yeah,
never gone to any of those
uh-huh,
parties. I didn't know they existed outside of movies.
uh-huh,
It was wild watching people just casually fuck in front of you while people are also eating and chatting away and hanging
yeah,
out
yeah,
in the room. You know, like, that was just wild.
uh-huh,
Like, to see. Um, it's like watching real life porn, and I actually lean more towards being a voyeur than an exhibitionist. Um, so it was definitely a spectacle. But anyways, yeah, I digress again. Yeah, what I would mentor people in their early 20s, like, one, it is so pros and cons. you're relatively in your prime, being sexually active. You have all these hormones, you
Uh-huh.
know. But it is safer to be in an industry in regards to safe sex. That
Yeah.
is the main industry for it, you know. If you know you're sexually active, you know, that active, that have a high sex drive, and you want things to be more consensual and everyone is tested, then I could totally understand why people would be in this industry. You're getting paid to have safe sex.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
it's like a win-win. You know, um, but now psychologically, mental health wise, again, I would encourage and teach them about consent, learn what their do's and don'ts are and their boundaries. So then when they arrive on set, they're not being pressured to do anything they don't want to do because that'll ruin the experience.
It
You
will.
know,
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
can be traumatized by that. You know, some people don't know how to gauge the intensity levels during sex. You know, and some people are new to that. Some people aren't used to having intense sex. You know, and that could be traumatizing to some people. So we need to learn how to. So that's another good thing. Again, back to those swinger parties, sex parties I used to go to more frequently.
Uh-huh.
I went to both the vanilla ones and also the BDSM kink fetish ones. So
Uh-huh.
the BDSM kink fetish ones are really good. Well, if they're well, the more true doms, the like I'm a femdom
Uh-huh.
or dominatrix in some aspects. And I honestly think the real ones that have this honor code where you test things out on yourself first before trying things on other people so you know exactly how it feels. You're not a hypocrite. That's just my honor code and my morals about it, you know, instead of abusing your power, you know.
Uh-huh.
That could
Yeah.
traumatize people. You know, they'll just assume all doms are like that, or they'll just assume the BDSM is just extreme and hardcore and unsafe. No, people who don't respect it, um, and the aftercare, will abuse their power and will ruin the experience for people, and will assume all doms are abusive. You know, but there are caring ones, maternal ones like me.
Uh-huh.
Um, but again, so what I'm trying to say is that's a good example in our mainstream vanilla industry that we need to start having more safety protocols. But it is I actually in some sets I am seeing like other females there being there on set, you know, to make other females feel
Feel
safe.
comfortable? Yeah.
Yeah, other consent coordinators, safety coordinators are there for to check off, you know, boundaries. And that wasn't a thing before, you know. Certain companies are slowly starting to have that be part of their um, be part of their vetting process, you know, which is good. It gives me hope in the industry, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and it does make a difference, you know, instead of being a female coming to a sausage fest and you could feel the energy in the room,
Yeah.
you know, when it's like that.
Uh-huh.
And so some chicks don't know how to handle that, you know, they could, you know, the pressure could be too much, you know, and then they'll feel like they're um being molested and raped, you know. But it totally makes a difference when there's another female on set to coordinate, to kind of advocate for you, you know, be on your side. But yeah, so again, training and mentoring the people who are in their early 20s. Yeah, I'm coming from a place of understanding. Uh, you know, you want to get paid to have safe sex, but don't pressure, you know, anyone to do anything they don't want to do. You're not obligated to do anything you don't want to do. Um, know your boundaries, your hard and soft limits, uh, and yeah, just it's okay to to be assertive. You know, some
Uh-huh.
people are scared to speak their mind if they lose a gig, lose a job, lose a, you know, a role in something. But um that just says a lot about our society and even just our character. It just really tests your character as well. Like, um, would you be more happy in the long run, uh, doing something that wasn't genuine to yourself, that wasn't authentic to yourself, just for the money,
Yeah.
or set your intentions, be more mindful about it. Like, why am I doing this? It's a means to an end. What do I want to get out from this? How do I still transform this into a positive experience? Even if things weren't too ideal, you know.
Uh-huh.
But that's the sacrifices. Like, so again, it goes back to trauma and the BDSM scene, and what we discussed early in this conversation is I think this type of rabbit hole, this type of unconventional line of work is great for people who like, we've all experienced some form of trauma growing up, childhood,
Uh-huh.
adult. And if it's sexual related, um we're able to transform, take our power back. We were able to transform that type of energy into something more constructive, productive, and consensual. That's how we take our power back if we were violated, when we were younger. You
Uh-huh.
know, um, it's it's transforming that type of energy, consent, and power into something that actually feels more. You feel more empowered and more liberated. At least for me, in my experience, you know. And again, trauma is something I definitely want to have a real talk with people, especially coming if they're really young in their 20s coming into this industry. Like, hey, is there any like unresolved trauma, something you grew up with that might trigger you on set? You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like learn what that those are, so not to do that on set. Or find people who could help channel that type of memory and transform it into a more positive memory to associate that with, so it doesn't feel too crippling anymore.
Yeah.
uh
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of great things you shared. At the end of the day, the best advice that was given to me was there's no putting the genie back in the bottle. So be very careful entering this industry. Make sure you really want to do it. Stay sober,
Mhm,
because you just can't take things back. So you got to be
mhm.
really careful with everything you do in this industry.
Yeah, it takes a certain amount of discipline. Like, if you
Discipline,
it's
yes.
okay to drink and party, but don't do that on set. Don't do that when you're trying to film. Like, I remember the last conventions at like Exotica and AVN. I
Uh,
passed up on two different orgies because everyone was drunk, and then there weren't any clean towels. And I was like, oh, hell no.
you gotta have clean
I'll
towels,
stick
man.
around to make sure everyone's okay, but
Yeah, yeah,
like, like, gotta have that certain levels, that's type of like standard,
I
like,
agree.
why do you think it's okay to drink and film and then not worry about having possible allegations? Like, put that together, make that make sense. Like a lot of that could have been avoided,
Yeah,
you
we
know?
would we would never allow any alcohol on any of our sets in any of our videos, just because the next day the model could say, "Well, I was too drunk. I didn't know what I was doing."
Exactly, exactly. And I get it psychologically. It helps people relax more, it helps bring our inhibitions out more.
Yeah.
But then that just goes back to the person as an individual. Let's just have better coping mechanisms, better ways to relax, and you know, um, like, if you're already struggling with that, then the industry could potentially fuck you up more.
Yeah.
Especially if you're coming into the industry already with the mentality of, you want external validation, you want other
Uh-huh.
people's approval. That's really gonna fuck you up in this industry. If you really only care about how you look and what other people say about you. Um, but yeah, so that's part of like the whole mentoring process that I would the key points that I would have a conversation with people in their early 20s coming to the industry, like, hey, um, let's address potential trauma triggers, and what you could do on your off days, what you could do in between work to help keep you grounded. So
Yeah.
you don't get obsessed with this line of work. So this doesn't become a crutch, you
Yeah.
know, and yeah, so this doesn't become like some like people would assume people in the industry are all sex addicts. Some of them probably are,
Uh-huh.
but not all of us.
But a
And
lot of
all
people that aren't in the industry are sex addicts, right? So I mean, it's just some people
it
decide to do it for work.
Right, exactly, right. It makes sense to kind of capitalize on that, you know, make yourself a commodity on that, you know, especially if you're already putting a lot of time and energy into doing that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it goes back to education again and not to overgeneralize people because everyone should be on a case by case basis.
Yeah.
Everyone is different, you know, different personalities. Everyone brings something different to the table. So, yeah, some of them are sex addicts, but I used to study drugs and alcohol counseling back in college.
Uh-huh.
So, anything is only an addiction if it's negatively
In
impacting
your life.
work life, your social life, your family life. If it's really negatively impacting that, then it is a form of an addiction, you know. But
Very true. That's
if
very
you're
true.
right, but if you're disciplined enough, know yourself enough, with your boundaries and you're high functioning, then you're able to I guess me for an example, able to compartmentalize and keep certain things separate, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um and you know, yeah, so there's that like um yeah, I only hmm, let me okay, backtrack here. Um yeah, so there are people like me who are athletes. We already have like a high sex drive, but
Uh-huh.
that there's a difference between that and being a sex addict. You know, they both have high sex drives, but one could be using it as a crutch, you know, as a coping mechanism whenever they feel bad about something. They
Uh-huh.
use that as a way to get that quick, natural chemical dopamine high.
Yeah.
I understand that. And then there's, you're actually physically active and you have a high sex drive and those types of urges and cravings. Um, so there's that. But then, there are people you could tell who are genuinely into it, genuinely passionate, genuinely like to fucking have sex and actually make it a positive, enjoyable experience. And people who are um only doing it just for the money. And and that kind of translates on camera. You could tell.
Oh, I've said this many times in previous podcast episodes. When you're passionate, enjoying yourself, it creates a good product. When you're doing it
Yeah.
just for the money, it's gonna be shit.
Yeah, and that goes across the board with anything. You know, when you bring more life into something, that's when you're actually passionate about it. That's where there's more creativity, in the process. Um, but yeah, so again, back to training the theoretical 20-year-olds. Yeah, so there's that in the short term, but in the long run, like, hey, I would also have another real talk conversation. Hey, so all this is going to be online forever.
Yeah.
Um, you have family or friends that will potentially see it, hear of it. Someone might blow the whistle, something, right? Um, you got to meditate. You got to meditate on those sacrifices, on those pros and cons. Like, hey, do you have enough resilience? Do you have enough self-love for yourself where where when they throw stones at you, are you able to stand your ground and still be true to yourself? It's another thing I tell people in this industry, like, hey, how do you survive in this industry long enough to still be true to yourself?
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like it's already taking a piece out of you, visually, physically, you know, you're already sacrificing part of yourself.
You are.
But
You
how much
are.
more do you want to compromise of yourself when it comes to your mental health? Like, no one should gaslight you into saying, hey, you know, you're a bad person. You yourself should know, yourself the best. on your own virtues, like on just how do you say, on your dualities. It takes a certain amount of self-acceptance, you know, to do what you do. And for such a stigmatizing industry. But again, I think a lot of the trade-offs for some people, especially as females and women, since it's more stigmatized for females,
Uh-huh.
um, for me at least, it's the whole empowering uh, liberation aspect, because it's such like a fuck you
Yeah.
to certain toxic patriarchy, in my opinion.
Uh-huh.
you know, um, and and because we weren't taught, like nothing should be put on a pedestal. Let me disclaimer, nothing should be put on a pedestal, but we weren't taught that it's okay for women to have an orgasm. We weren't taught that it's even possible. There are females out there who's never had an orgasm, or
A
who's
real
never
one, right? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And I know I know there are some people who are living vicariously through me, and representation does matter, and feeling empowered and liberated in that sense is such a powerful personal feeling that I hope everyone, no pun intended, gets a taste of, you
Yeah.
know, when you feel empowered and um, doing, like, yeah, a lot of us, like, you know it in your gut, in your heart, when when a conventional life doesn't work for you, you know.
Uh-huh.
Um, like, okay, so let's uh I'll share another thing. So it was such an eye opener with the quarantine and pandemic, because I lost the rest of my grandparents within on both sides of my family
Sorry
during.
to hear that.
I appreciate that moment. Um, and it's another reason why I'm so driven to do what I do and being an activist.
Uh-huh.
If we all had living wage, we would we would be able to be there more for our family and our friends.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember when I worked at conventional 9 to 5 minimum wage job, I worked a lot of holidays,
Yeah.
and um and I wished, like, I wasn't there for my grandparents when I had to work those holidays.
Uh-huh.
So that's another reason why I feel, and I have that activism in me, to fight for a living wage. If we all had a certain amount, of money to take care of ourselves, our mental health, be there more for our friends and family, like, those things, we wouldn't take for granted. But yeah, so that's some of my origin story there, and my real talk about this industry, the pros and cons, and keeping it real with you.
Yeah, but to be honest, I know what it's like to work that 9 to 5. Throughout my all my 20s, I was also in the food service. So I know what it's like to have to work, on days that you don't want to work,
Mhm.
holidays. I'm pretty lucky with my position now here at Globetrotters. I get to talk to people like you, and get paid for it. So I mean, where can I go wrong? So I'm pretty blessed. But
Like,
thank you for sharing. So I know what it's like to work in the food industry.
oh
Um,
yeah, I don't miss the rude customers. I knew I was getting burnt out and jaded when I legit wanted to hop over the counter and fight some of those rude customers. And I
yeah,
started to work high, and I was like, "Fuck it." But I was also going through extra shit that year too.
yeah,
But yeah, you could tell. So again, I see everything as connected. Um, you get to you get a taste of the real world of how some people are entitled, you
yeah.
know, and some people waste food, and how some places cut corners. And
Uh-huh.
we're the only country with the most amount of food waste.
Oh, trust
You
me, I've seen. Oh yeah, oh yeah.
you know how it is, like in the food industry. Like, so much food has gone to waste. Like, I remember how I would have to do certain paperwork so I could give out food to the homeless off the clock, you know.
Uh-huh.
Um, but that's just me. Like, I even before I got into before I got into the industry, I was already altruistic. So that's another reason why I do what I do, because it funds my gym memberships, that helps keep my mental health sane, but also helps me fund different resources that I'm able to give to my communities, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. So I'm not just doing this, I'm not just being in an industry for like shallow, superficial reasons,
Uh-huh.
you know? So I think that sets me apart from other pandemic porn stars, as I call it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're right about food waste in America, and I've lived in the Philippines, so
Oh,
I know how bad it feels throwing away food when you know that
yeah,
back in the Philippines or other countries that people would die for that sandwich, that sandwich that you bit one time, they would die for that, you know?
exactly.
So
And
yeah, I
people,
know what you're talking about.
yeah, the psychology of it is it's such a twist over here, how people perceive leaving out water as bad,
Yeah,
when it
exactly.
was untouched. Like why not water some plants or give it to a dog bowl, or
Make
it's
use
just
of it somehow, right?
yeah, exactly. Like um we could repurpose things, like uh in this country, society, and culture, it's very individual based, which has its pros and cons, but it's not really community based.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's something I want to help uh, cultivate in my travels. Like that's another thing too. Another perk about being in this industry, I got to travel so much. It was my first time taking flights, you know,
Uh-huh.
and experience different types of food. But also, you could tell so much about the city you're in based on the TV ads.
Yeah.
It caters to certain demographics. Like I remember in some cities, you see a lot of ads pushing fast food restaurants, and ads pushing big pharmaceuticals, and then ads just pushing yachts, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and fishing, and then ads actually supporting the LGBT community. It says a lot about the city you're in and those demographics and what they're catering to. But yeah, it goes back to classism, you know, how we how food waste and classism is related. I'm not gonna go into deep dive on that, but those first world privileges.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another reason why. Uh, um, like so recently, a few weeks ago, or maybe last. Actually, it was right before AVN month. I remember. I usually bring leftovers home.
Uh-huh.
I don't like wasting food. And if I don't want to eat it anymore, I always give it away, to someone that seems homeless or displaced. So I remember recently I was walking on Sunset Strip and I had leftovers. Um, and I just wanted, because I don't, I'm trying to have, uh, I'm an athlete and I'm trying to eat cleaner, for my training and fight camps.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I can't have fries, but sometimes they give you that on the side.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
it's one of the reasons why I rarely go out to eat now. But anyways, I just had leftover fries, and I remember, you know what, I'm gonna give this to someone like on the way back. And I approached this dude, who's half naked, just looking flustered in the corner. But I wasn't scared, you know. I was brave enough to just, hey, I'm gonna be optimistic about this, benefit of the doubt, you know, be human here, come from a
Uh-huh.
place of love, not fear. Because if you go to places with fear, people will pick up on that and will get defensive and be reactive.
Yeah.
So I just approached him like, "Hey, these are my leftovers. I don't want to throw it away." And he looked at me with like such like surprise, and he had like tears in his eyes.
Yeah.
Like it was just something he did not expect around there. This was around like Beverly Hills slash
Uh-huh.
Hollywood, which I'm sure he did not expect, to be approached with food like that. So that was something, that's me staying true to myself,
Yeah.
regardless of who I was with. I was actually on a date with someone that day, and
Uh-huh.
it was his leftovers that he was gonna throw away.
No,
I was like, no,
that's
you
very
keep
kind
this.
of you to give it to someone, you know?
Yeah, that's just me. That's my personality. Even before I got into the industry, I'm always looking out for I always try to look out for people, or at least I have that type of situational awareness to see like who's around me, what's going on around me,
Yeah.
because it affects one another. Everything's a puzzle piece. That's how I perceive things. Plus, if you want to be objective about it and hygienic about it, if you take care of your homeless, they'll have less diseases. And if they have less diseases, they'll affect your communities less. I'm over here. I'm kind of a survivalist. I like to doomsday prep sometimes. One of my hobbies. So I'm over here low key thinking, okay, let me give this person some water. That'll help them with whatever they need if they're, to stay hydrated or to clean themselves. You know, so we don't have some type of fucking zombie outbreak. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
also low key that was also my agenda, my motive too. But that's how I see shit, and a lot of people don't think like that. A lot of people are sheltered.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
But
everyone
yeah,
has their own story. You never know what they're going through. Any kind of act of kindness is always good.
exactly. It does create positive ripple effects, and I find power in that. And I don't. The trick is to not expect anything in return. It's karma.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
good karma. You know.
And don't post shit on social media just for the likes. Don't give out stuff to the homeless just to post it on social media just so you can look good, right? Because you see that a lot nowadays.
Right. It's a balance. There are pros and cons to that too. It's good to bring awareness to it.
Awareness. There you go. You're right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's
Yeah.
good to bring awareness to it. And a lot of us are visual learners. So just seeing something already kind of
Might motivate others to do the same thing, the same act
exactly,
of kindness. You're right. Yeah.
exactly. So there's still good that comes from that. But regardless of the motive, whether it's clout or for likes, that's on them. But if the bigger picture is bringing awareness to something and helping us as a community be more collectively conscious, you get my support on that,
Yeah.
you know? So, but it is a balance because I remember I would have to take social media breaks too because some things could be overwhelming.
Oh, trust me. I know. Yeah.
Yeah, and I identify as an empath, so I'm more sensitive to other people's pain than some people. So, I take a lot of grief and loss personally, and I need to take my breaks to recharge in between going out and hanging out with people and being around people to recharge and to come back to my own inner peace and align with my own personal core values so it doesn't get twisted by any other extra negative loud noise or that's from the status quo or the matrix. um, um but yeah.
Yeah, I think we all need a break sometimes from social media.
Definitely, yeah.
It'll do you good.
Yeah, exactly, to unplug and um to like I practice enough yoga now, breath work and training. It helps keep me disciplined. It helps me be in the moment because like I said, when I used to struggle with anxiety and depression, I used to really dwell and ruminate and get stuck on the past and get stuck on the future. But
Yeah.
with yoga and training and even with this even with sex work, it forces you to be in the moment.
Yeah.
And I think that's another reason why people find power in it. It helps you be more in the moment. It helps you live in the moment. It helps you
I
feel
agree.
alive. Yeah,
Yeah.
it helps. Yeah, all that. So I totally understand the psychological aspects of it. Um, but it's about balancing it. Not doing it too much where you don't know your identity without it. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
So I'm curious, where can our listeners find your content? And do you wish to share any social media accounts so they can follow you?
Oh yeah, so all my platforms are listed on Linktree / Channy Crossfire, and you can find me on Instagram, Channy_Crossfire. You can find me on Twitter. You could find me, mostly Instagram and Twitter, and all my links are on there. And I mean, aside from plugging in my platforms that help support me financially, my own endeavors and my own mental health. I also plug in different organizations that I advocate and support, you know. So there's always something to keep tabs on and to look into. Um, yeah, so it's not just about giving me the extra $5 that could have been your coffee money, uh, but I encourage you to explore those different types of topics and conversations, and just keep following your positive passions no matter what, and make love, not war.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, Channy, I've learned a lot today from you. It really made my day. It brought me, a lot of joy just listening to you. You're so awesome. Very positive. So thank you so much for coming here on the podcast. It's been so much fun, and I look forward to speaking to you.
Okay, yeah, I thank you for giving me a chance, to be me, to be authentic and bring some wholesomeness and realness into this industry and having these deep conversations. Like really, throughout all my travels and work, it's really these types of conversations that I live for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah.
Salamat.
Salamat, maraming salamat din. So again, thank you so much, Channy, and I look forward to speaking with you again.
All right, awesome. Okay,
Bye-bye.
peace.
Peace.